carry the drums to. They say
Tribal's out.
got you all clapping and tapping and tapping and tapping and tapping and tapping and tapping.
First, a drum set.
B5 come to the tribal drum jump. B5 come to the tribal drum jump. B5 come to the tribal drum jump. B5 come to the tribal drum jump.
Good evening, and welcome to the Do the Math podcast, episode number 2. I'm your host, Devin Morgan, and beside me is my man, the world-famous, internationally known, locally accepted DJ, MC, producer, / beat writer, slap maker, blend assassin, style icon, and above all that, really solid human being, and someone I'm proud to call a friend, my man DJ Topspin.
What's happening, sir?
My man. So here we are, doing a little episode number 1. What we did on episode 0 was kind of give a real, a brief, like 20-25 minute, just kind of a primer on kind of the idea of what I think is the particular space that Tribal Productions occupies in Seattle music history.
Okay.
And to that end, really where you guys kind of fit in with the the second wave of music coming out of Seattle, being really the last generation that was pre-internet, when everything changed.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
Very, very much so.
And I think amidst all the other the tertiary issues, like the coming up in a city at a time when as an independent artist where you couldn't book shows wherever you wanted to because there were some clubs that didn't
there's not a lot of spots that just were like nah.
You have a radio outlet, but the only verifiable or the viable radio outlet is like 2 hours on Sundays.
At that point, yeah. I mean, a lot of fake support. Well, not or people in placeholders to act like there was support from other radio stations, but there never really was that.
Right, right, and then in just kind of the now that we've got some distance from it, we see kind of the way that it was then and the obstacles,
right.
Which really I think are almost insurmountable.
Back then they were pretty big, and probably part of the reason that we kind of collectively stopped doing our thing. Not stopped, but I mean, everybody's lives started getting more complicated and whatnot, and probably why certain people let go of certain things, because at the certain point in time it was like seems to be a ceiling, as if we're gonna stay here and do it. But it was right after that is when you got access to the world on your laptop and in your pocket, and the stuff that we were doing then and spending money on and spending time on, you can do in 2 seconds on your phone now.
Right.
And this is
well, I mean, it's like the before we broadcast this this interview, we hit Facebook, Twitter, and you get on that merry-go-round.
Right.
And obviously our show's influence right now, the reach is small comparatively to the rest of the world.
Right.
But that doesn't take away from the fact that conceivably you can touch everybody.
Now you can. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So I think there are kind of two things that I think simultaneously that kind of thoughts that occupy my mind when it comes to tribal history.
Right.
And one of those is a real, I guess, a disappointment, but also motivation for, of course, coming up at that period of time when you have the absolute explosion of grunge music. It would be, on the one hand, you would say, well, I guess I understand that that the attention is going towards Seattle and it's looking towards that specific sound. At the same time, I would also say, well, there probably, if there's attention in general, and voices are being heard, then something more should have come out of that.
Right.
But the thing that has always kind of driven me nuts is this idea that these stories, like, the Seattle stories from men and women that came up in this city, and we're not talking about Port Orchard or Gig Harbor,
Right.
or like, I know some of those, like some of these rap cats,
Right.
they claim Seattle,
I
and
mean,
they're on the outskirts.
right. I mean, a lot of the stuff used to be. I mean, Seattle used to be a lot, or should I say Seattle? The 206 used to encompass a lot more.
Right.
It used to be,
right.
Tacoma.
3425.
Exactly. So there's a lot. It was more of an umbrella, but now it's a little more finite.
Right.
But yeah, there's some people that are like, yeah, way out there.
Right.
That, I mean, more power to them. Get your pride on it. Right now is a good time. You know what I'm saying? Seattle's in a good place for a lot of different things. So wanting to rally and wanting to be part of a collective, that's cool. I'm not trying to say you're not the 206, but there's certain things that are not Seattle too. So, Port Orchard isn't Seattle.
Right. And there's a certain amount of silliness to the fact that we're talking about Seattle stories, but we're talking about Central District stories. Mm-hmm. We're talking about Rainier Valley, South End of Seattle stories, yep. About as much of the core of the city as you can get. And, I didn't grow up in the Central District,
right.
But that doesn't mean as a Seattleite that I'm somehow not allowed to take pride in this beautiful art that comes out. You know what I mean? Because these are people that you're talking about communities that they're not strictly the same as mine, but in terms of a larger community,
right.
We're from here.
Mm-hmm.
We rep the same town.
This is very true. I mean, I was born and raised the shallow South End, I guess right outside the Central District, as it's defined.
Right.
But the lifeblood of Seattle is traceable, I guess, and like certain bus routes, 48, 7, 9.
Yeah, the 7.
Yeah, the 7 really gets you everywhere. Where is really matters.
Yeah. Yep.
As far as quintessential town travel and whatnot, and I'm glad we could tell these stories here. But even speaking of the 7 and of a story that I want to hear, like my man Inya, he just recently posted like he was on the 7 chopping up with Ishmael,
right,
of Diggable Planets and Shabazz.
I saw that.
Talking about the hip hop of today. Even like I think Macklemore was part of the conversation, and I was like, when I put that status update up, I wanted to be a fly on that wall because that just brought such a visual.
Yep.
Like, I mean, both really super duper town cats. Salute to my guy, Inye.
Yes. Fats.
He's Fats. District money. I did a mixtape for him, show you how to do this part 1, and he's, like he says on there, he's so Seattle, and so is a cat like Ish. So just the description of that, like you guys are talking about this current state of the town on the 7, it was just like, it seemed very picturesque.
Yeah.
That's definitely, I wish I could be a fly on the wall during that conversation.
Yeah. and to that specific point, I think that really kind of encompasses a lot of my my desire for what I'd like to accomplish is providing, letting artists like Ish or Inye, we had this platform, so it's like, on the one hand, things have changed glacially, but I can't hate on that change because
right.
the very reality of that change is what allows us to say, I'm going to do a podcast on something so specific, so granular, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking Seattle hip hop history
in a certain period. I mean, this is it's dope. Like Seattle's, like I said, in a good place right now to where a lot of stories are being told.
Yep.
A lot of history is being made in front of our eyes, and there's a lot of people right now. I mean, I've speaking with a number of people, and they're like Seattle's really doing it right now. Like
been doing it
exactly. Like, that's exactly what the addendum I got to put on. It's like we've been doing it,
yeah.
and it's just we don't have the media machines to come across as legitimately as a lot of these other markets or whatever. But the talent is making up for that, and there's so many different things popping. I mean, you got stuff from like the Flavor Blue,
Oh
to
yeah.
Macklemore, to Fly Moon Royalty, or is it Royalty?
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to say reality.
Shout out to Mike and Audra.
No doubt. Sport and Life. There's a lot of stuff that's bubbling right now that's great to see, and it's really quality. And I'm glad to still be a part of the part of it. There's people that hit me up just on some. I just want to chop it up with you just on some counsel to get I guess someone who's been at it for a minute's take on things. So I guess it's kind of like this, but it's
like it's like the the tapes that Jake and Supreme used to drop, veterano status.
Exactly, man. All that, man. I was just was reading about that too. Someone just I think posted a link on some of them, and a lot of people trying to find those. And so I'm saying there's people from here that have been making all types of moves for a long time. I mean, Jake is definitely now a top tier producer globally as far as hip hop is concerned, and has lent his talents to so many different projects, and his discography's so long. He's just been at it for so long, just steadily. But got his beginnings from the Conception Records era, and cat like my brother Supreme, who's still doing his thing on the table as well as on the production, and it's just good to see good guys that have been talented still at it and still making a difference and still putting on for the town.
Right, and so that's kind of segues into one of the things that I wanted to touch on with you, because there's this idea in my mind that you could look at it retrospectively and see, well, Tribal put out music and it didn't make whatever you would say the leap.
Yeah.
If there's a leap that takes you like from E40 in the Bay Area to E40 in Seattle to E40 in the Midwest, those leaps are huge for independent artists. And I think conventionally you would look at the story and say, well, if the leap didn't take place, it's like you got on a plane to try to take off on the runway, and there was no gas in the plane, or whatever, and then and that's the end of the story. And I would contradict the suggestion that the story ends there very strongly, because having the ability to get to know, and even just to see from a distance, members of Tribal stay connected to creative things. I think that's the litmus test. That's the thing that says, as an artist, maybe the end goal isn't to make it. Maybe there isn't a goal. Maybe the thing is just to be an artist.
That's definitely a truth to that, because at the end of the day, I mean, personally for somebody, as well as how it's perceived, I guess, by people who aren't artists, when people realize, or the fact that we can do what you like doing, like to be able to your work not be work or seem as worky. Basically, like when you work for yourself, is a different way that people talk to you, look at you, treat you. Because I mean, that's the blessing. I mean, no matter if you're the star. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You're talking about like making it, or it's not necessarily about being the headliner all the time. There's plenty of respect in being, a cog in a machine. I mean, I even liken that to like just checking out Macklemore at Key Arena the last night of the tour, which was crazy. Like that was crazy. And a lot of people start their conversations about Macklemore with like, no matter what you think about him or whatever. And I mean, but whatever. No matter what you think about him, this guy's doing this damn thing and having a ball and doing things in a very traditional, in some respects, just a hip hop fashion. Like it's like that freestyle that he had on BET. I mean, I know we talked about it. It was probably like a year ago now. Yeah. I mean, he's killed it. I mean, the thing is, he has fun with the art form. Right. Just period, point blank. And no one's calling him the best rapper. No one's calling him the best, best dude since Eminem, even if you want to keep him in a particular lane.
Right.
But he has fun with the art, and that's what translates. That's, and is honest with himself about, honest about himself in his art, and that's really what translates. And people have all these.
Well, and that honesty is kind of what got him started.
Yeah.
I mean, because like Other Side was his first big joint, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, no one is going to say to you at a record label, you're going to go, okay, well, my first joint that I'm going to try to put out is going to be about pills and lean. Right. And then my second joint that's going to get real popular, well, that song's going to be about a baseball broadcaster that's dead. Yeah, no. And watch me get turned up off that. No, his whole like a set, and a lot of people and artists, a lot of disgruntled artists, wonder why, or think it should have been them and this and that, and they don't really realize the length he's been at it, as well as the benefit of like just being a victim of this perfect storm. A lot of the things were put in place, but
for sure.
But the songs you're talking about, the previous ones, like his subject matter and style has always been his style. It's just that 2 or 3 joints off of this actual release, album release, caught on, and now everything is all Macklemore everything, and it's it's well, even seeing at the key, so it's a joint like The Town, and and to see and I saw that performed. I guess the last time I saw him perform was at one of the shows at
one of the
Showbox shows.
Yeah.
When they did the whole Mix-a-Lot thing, and he was
Yep.
And but even then, I mean, that was years ago, and that was 3 nights in a row sold out, and that was on the strength of what he had been doing up to that point. I mean, he had hits already. Like, I mean, as far as with his listenership, there was Irish and all these other songs.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, he has a different demographic, and a lot of people don't recognize that too. Like the type of folks that, what I'm saying? Irish folks. How many people on the planet is that? That's a whole nother.
Right.
That's a lot of people.
Right.
So when there's people think it's like some overnight thing or whatever, it's like, nah, he's kind of been tenacious with it. I mean, at least he's been steady doing what he's doing, and just now the ball is rolling, and it's just turning snowballed, and I mean, no pun intended. But
but you know what? I think one of the things that I would argue very strongly is that making it from my outside perspective is like hitting the Powerball.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is that the ultimate validity of the artistic expression is what he's doing, and I think he's kind of a good example for this, because he's telling stories that are personal to him, is no different than the person that we were talking about before we started, that's trying to get back into music.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because it's like there's a truth in that. There's a truth in that desire to try to have an idea and something that you want to put out into the world, and something that you feel necessary to express.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you're it's hard for that desire to leave you if you spend a lot of time in the 10,000 hours, to consider somewhat of a master in whatever your field is. It's hard to just put that down. You're gonna always want to do that. And I hope that person gets busy and does that, because that's my man.
Yeah, you should.
But what you call it? I mean, just going back to even I touched on it for a second, but like being at the Key Arena, seeing everybody, first of all, I guess go crazy from teenagers to, first of all, just seeing from like 8-year-old to 80. There's really 8 to 80. Like there were grandparents in there, like on date night, like kicking it, like really. I'm saying Irish came out and they're sitting there. So like there's all time, his reach is crazy, but seeing a joint like The Town, the video, and I mean not to mention just like the visual, just the visual component to his show is crazy.
Yeah.
But to like look back at the crowd and see grandparents and 8-year-olds, singing along, and and sporting life coming out their mouth, and
be self-vital.
Be self-vital, do the math, tribal, all this stuff, and it's like, and just to think how many of those people don't really even know that. They know the lyric, they might not know, really what that's about. but the fact that he, like, everything he does is really, really, really town based, and that's a part of why he's winning too. I mean, you got stuff like Curating, you got Dave Niehaus, you got Can't Hold, is pretty much like the Seahawks anthem.
Yep.
You have, like, there's a lot of things he's been doing for a long time, and now that Seattle's bubbling, it's like, oh, you have all the Seattle stuff, so it's like you're like a walk-in poster child or whatever.
Right.
So, I get it, and it's cool, and it's cool that to see our influence still coursing through the veins of stuff that's very popular right now, and
which I think is part of the reason that if I wasn't doing this, I would want someone to do this, because you have to understand that while I suppose it is possible that Macklemore could come up with his could kind of find his lane in a bubble.
Right.
It didn't happen in a bubble.
No.
It happened in a Seattle bubble, and this is a dude that has continually kind of acknowledged that influence, and I give him a lot of credit for that, because I mean, especially within the confines of kind of hip hop history, there aren't a lot of guys that, Snoop Dogg didn't come out and say, oh, well, I'm kind of patterning myself off of like a Smooth B, Slick Rick kind of, that was never obviously stated.
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of not what we do.
Right.
And and certainly, I don't know. That has always just kind of impressed me about his take on things.
As far as I mean, I guess I lost you for a second.
So I'm saying that that the dude doesn't have to
say Seattle so much, or just rep it so hard, or
he doesn't have to.
No, it's dope though. But you think about it, you see him on the news, and he's selling out Paris and adding another show in Prague and all this stuff. And every single show, he's sitting there screaming Seattle, Seattle, and really waving the Seattle flag. I mean, he has a thing for flags, but he's really waving the Seattle flag everywhere.
A flag aficionado.
Yeah, I mean, just globally, he's really letting. It's really, this is about, I got my city behind me. I mean, all this stuff can be rallied, making sure people rally behind you, but he really does. It's like he's repping the town,
right,
wherever he goes, and that's a good look, and that's what people get into, because I mean, shoot, the Seahawks are winning now. We don't have a basketball team. We need things to rally behind,
right?
And we have plenty of talent, to rally behind, but it's just about them performing on a national and global level, and he's doing that impeccably. So, but yeah, being like beside Javon and watching the town and this from Sport Life and Troubles, like that's kind of cool. But it's well, I mean, especially for you, because we're talking about it's dope. I mean, it's dope to see what we did at a certain period of time mean so much to people,
right?
And fuel them in their lives, and put a spark in their lives, and really make memories, and just the variety of things that people come up and say, that it has done and continues to do. So I'm proud of what we did just for that.
For sure. So on kind of a different, to take a little sidetrack to that, and kind of on this idea of finding spaces to be, if you're a creative artist, and finding spaces to continue with creativity for the rest of your life. I remember we were talking a couple weeks ago about Vibe Heavy.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that, and it seems like such a natural progression for the way that things need to go. It's like one of the side effects of everyone being able to put out anything at any time is that everybody's an artist. Right? And it seems like it's a completely insurmountable task that as a normal person, not normal, as a person who has, a job that's not being a DJ, you can't master these, you can't tend to these fields. You know what I mean? You absolutely cannot do it.
No, I mean,
so like
stuff I don't know about either.
Yeah, well, for sure. But it's like, you think about like the news.
Mhm.
You know, back in the day, the nightly news was presented to you by Walter Cronkite,
Right.
and they would kind of, you know, shape and form and curate kind of what you needed to know.
Right.
And the more that media has kind of expanded, and now with more cable networks, and then of course the internet, again, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, you can get whatever news you want to fuel your own.
Right.
You know, not even so you can learn stuff, but
Right.
just to
Just to fuel
validate
your
the
own-
shit
your own
that you
agenda.
already
Right.
think.
Right.
Right. But it's like in music, you know, we're getting to this point where it seems like we need to have musical curators. And if anything, that's why the DJ should come back to the forefront.
That's exactly what. That's really a lot of Vibe Heavy's mantra. Trust the DJ. Getting back to trusting the DJ. I mean, that's one of their kind of taglines. # whatever. Trust the DJ.
Right.
And just even the name itself. It's vibe oriented. Where you're. I mean, well, shout out to my man Riff, who's CEO of Vibe Heavy, and my curator, Mr. Supreme.
Right.
As well as Ali Shaheed Muhammad,
The god
of Tranquil Quest, who happens to be Arif's cousin.
Right.
But it's a good look. It kind of picked up from where earlier in the late 2000s.
That whole Microsoft thing you were telling me about.
Vibe Heavy is kind of like mindset on steroids, or just with a technological connection and
Right.
edge. Not just people who work at Microsoft, but it really is, you know, an app that's being developed that's really curated musical content, quality. Just like I said, for the people who aren't DJs,
Right.
We're going to feed you what's fly.
Right.
And especially in the internet era, where you can pluck anything out of the air that you think of. I mean, there's just millions of things in the air, but people seem to be hungry for, I don't know necessarily a time, but the tastemaker again, I guess. Someone who's getting back to trusting the DJ. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people that, like right now, I get a lot of inquiries about prior mixtapes. People wanting to purchase those, and I'm getting my catalog together because there's really a whole lot of them, and I'm just trying to figure out a way to make those available yet have it beneficial to me and not just give everything away and things of that nature. But there's people who really like these things mean a whole lot to them. Like this was the summer, and I had a painting job, and we used to do this all summer, and I need to get that one. And
if it's velour vibes, I mean, it's the summer that my baby was made.
See, that's what I'm saying. There's velours, there's pillows, and pillow talks, and all types of material that I'm trying to get a full-fledged catalog of, because it really has been the soundtrack to some folks' lives. And
humble brag.
Humble brag. Humble. That's what they tell me, man. I mean, I
would tell you that. I got joints right over there.
See, I mean, it's somebody just posted the in-store sign for toothpaste on my Instagram today.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that was the things I was at Kinko sitting here pressing up. So the fact that, you know, I mean, it's kind of ill to see that. I mean, and the person that posted it, I don't know if they ran a store, or I don't know how they acquired it, but it meant enough to them to sit there and make it their Throwback Thursday. So I gotta think that it means something.
For sure, it does. And like, you know, this whole, I mean, that evolution of what you guys are talking about with Vibe Heavy doesn't seem to me altogether different than what we used to get from mixtapes.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's like, you know, any of the, not even just the blend joints. I mean, you know, listening to tapes of yours, it was just like, you know, where did this come from? I mean, the most ridiculous example I can remember is I bought a B Mellow tape at Music Menu.
Yeah.
And this is kind of late in the era, like maybe right before Music Menu shut down.
Right.
You know, close to the late 90s.
Right.
And there was a joint on there by a guy named Fats Bossellini.
Yeah. Is he from here?
I think he's from the Bay.
Yeah. No.
And it was over like a busted like instrumental.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the Loonies were on there, and that shit was hot.
Yeah, no.
But even, you know, even back then, you know, when the pool is ostensibly smaller, and I am at the peak of my rap nerddom, right? Source Magazine, 4080, rap pages, the flavor, like I'm trying to be in my meager means, be as connected as possible.
Right.
And I have never heard of Fats Bozzolini, but the DJ serves that purpose as the musical curator, where it's like you can find joints, and of course it was probably in a record pool or something like that. But when you're plugged in that way and it's your job,
right, it's different access than.
But I guess the part of that is, if it's your job, that means it has to pay.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Even that, like, that's part of, like, it has to pay, I guess. That's part of the reason why, like, I guess I don't do tapes as often.
Right.
They're not as physical. I used to have a whole lot of fun in design and everything like that, and and the physical product, and the speed of music being released is so fast, anyways. And artists that want to put out anything that's not an album are calling it a mixtape, and
where's the mixing?
Exactly, there's no mixing. That's even why I started making tapes, because of B Mello. Shout out to B Mello.
Shout out to the GOG.
Shout out to B Mello.
And congratulations on
on the newborn, and not the end of the bus, but it wasn't enough mixing on his tapes for me, because his tapes back when I ran into them. He was the man. He was at Art Bar. He had the pictures of him with the full case Logic.
Yeah.
Handing you the tapes with a handful of money, and he was just like, it was like a whole, like, this guy is the mixtape dude. But the ones that I had ran into him when I first started listening to him were kind of fashioned after, like, New York tapes or whatever, because he had
sure.
Exactly, which was a lot more exclusive based.
Right.
So if you're somebody sending you an exclusive off of a DAT tape, it's not like you can exactly mix it.
Right.
So I get that, but I was a fan of the continuous nature of music, and it just being constant and just a nonstop mix. Like, if it was a mixtape, I wanted nonstop mixing. I didn't want to break. I really didn't want to break a tempo and go in another different direction. I wasn't really thinking about that when I was first messing around or whatever. When I first got some turntables and was first toying around with stuff. Even the first couple of tapes I made were like the first Pillow Talk was a breakup tape, like, for a girl who left and she moved out of town, and I'm sitting here sending a tape, but I mixed it with two turntables that didn't have any pitch, and I'm holding, whatever, might hold the knob, or the little knob in the middle to slow it down or speed it, or all that to line stuff up. And luckily, the songs I picked were somewhere in the same, close enough to make it happen. But it was always about.
Was Jodeci's Cry Tonight on there?
No.
It was before that?
Baby Don't Cry. It was a lot of joints. Baby Don't Cry, Layla Hathaway, Baby Don't Go.
Oh,
all types, Mary J. Blige. It was a.
The Mary off the Mary's album that had all the great sad songs on it.
Where she sampled the Guy joint. Baby Don't Go. So yes, you just made it happen. When you have limited resources, you just do whatever you got to do to make it happen. But the hunger. With everything being called a mixtape, and the technology, if people can just as soon as the song's released, you get it on your phone. The perceived need for the tastemaker is diminished.
But it's got to come back around.
But exactly, it does though. It's diminished for a point, and then people realize what they don't have. A lot of people of that era, I guess, realize what's missing.
Yeah.
And it's.
Well, you look at like Spotify is trying to do that. You know?
And I know a lot of people on it, and I just spend so much time just acquiring music, digitally, that and everybody and their grandma is like turning into like a Spotify DJ, or come check out my playlist.
Check out my playlist.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But as far as DJ stuff, I don't know. I just still. Now I take my time to just, to make sure it's something that represents me. Like, now it'll be a few years in between of Allure, because there needs to be time for that special of the music for me to pick, as well as, it's just, that's how long it takes for me now. There's plenty of DJs that make mixes all the time too, and that's cool. But I'm not trying to be like a barbershop bootlegger that's just making a tape off of the latest songs that came out this week. And
Yeah,
you know,
that was
that's not even a lick no more. I mean,
yeah. Those it got to a point where when tapes were coming out and it was just like, here's a stack of a bunch of random joints,
right?
And then you always know that the last like 2 or 3 on there would be from some dudes that were just friends of the DJ,
Exactly,
and they had no accreditation whatsoever.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
that
it's I still like the process though. I mean, I release stuff. I now with Serato, you can record, you
Right.
know, just on the
No, I know
fly,
you stay active on dropping
I,
blends in there and there.
you know, exactly. I mean, I still cook stuff up. I mean, there's stuff I mean, I just need to be a little quicker on the stuff I came up with, you know, during the holiday season. I could have put out as a little party record or whatever, but I just try to stay active within the field. I mean, staying hired is one thing, but I mean,
Right.
and doing stuff that's, you know, in conjunction with different companies and just as long as it's beneficial to my brand,
Right.
then, you know, I'm kind of with it.
So for you, did the tapes start like not really post tribal, but kind of as that started waning? Because I'm trying to remember the first tape that I saw.
I started making tapes. I forget the order. I met. It had to have been. I started making tapes after tribal. Well, not even after, but after tribal had started, I met Vitamin D, and his cousin Damon, who ended up being my graphic artist, who still helps me out right to this day. I'm about to talk to him tonight about some stuff.
Yeah, he did the untranslated, the graphic cover, right?
He did.
Or am I tripping?
You know what? The first one.
Because that's
a repress.
That one.
I should have brought. I thought I just gave that back to Infinite.
That one that was on eBay.
Black and white. No. I mean, I had
like a couple years ago.
Yeah. That was a what you call it. That was a press, a promo copy that I was duplicating back in the day when I was making mixtapes. Actually, I bought that duplicator off of B Mello, and we were whizzing the promo tapes out for the college DJs and everything like that. But I can't remember if Damon. I think he did. Yeah, Damon did the
graphic design by Damon Brown.
He did that one too. He must have.
Yep.
See,
the Claw is our leader.
Yeah, I met because he was actually rapping with the Ghetto. He was actually part of the Ghetto Church. I think.
Right.
He was him. It was Vitamin, Damon, and Dan. Capabilities.
Okay, right.
He was a DJ. Who was a real DJ portion, and then Vitamin, Dan, Derek, and who did I just and Damon worked. I met them at Garfield, and most I guess interested in D because he made beats, and I was making beats. Tape style with a Casio SK1.
Right.
Loop tapes that had a whole big old octopus of chords and stuff. Like my Walkman with the Y joint, you know, these Y joints, the Y adapter. Like once I found out that the sampler could sample an outside source, that's because usually it just has a microphone and you do the Barry, you know, so like the Cosby Show episode or Robert, you know,
right.
Put your voice in the whole keys and it'll play your demo with it playing your voice as the notes. And I thought that was cool. And then I just saw this thing on the back. It was like input or something like that. Yeah. It was like, wait a minute. You could put stuff into it. Oh, I got a Walkman. So I have a Walkman. That's all I'm playing. I'm get a back-to-back 1/8" cord and put it in there. And
right.
I can sample off my Walkman? What? Are you kidding me? And so now I'm looking for open drums from different, you know, sampling Funky Drummer from like the Self-Destruction instrumental.
Right.
You know, boom, boom, cut,
yeah.
cut, but there's no sequencer, so you're sitting there hitting that on time for 4 minutes. Right. Then you have a tape full of drums, and then you pick out a sample, but you don't really have a lot of time. Like I even forgot how it was. Yeah, it might even be like it was like little jazz. I remember the beat actually. It was Funky Drummer. And like I forgot I don't know. I can't say I remember the beat, but I don't remember the artist. But it was a little jazz loop, a little horn. It was this little loop.
Right.
And even me just beatboxing, I think like it was a cover. It was a very popular jazz song. But I think the loop, I had to chop it. I had to do that in like 3 pieces. Like I could only sample like and then I have to sample and then and so it would be one pass with me triggering the first pass of it, and the next pass with me pacing the second piece of the loop, and the next pass. So I had these very, very airy takes.
But that wasn't like a one take.
No, I mean, right? well, no, you got to do it. You have to do each piece. You have to do each piece on top of each piece live.
Right.
So it's 4 minutes of drums triggered live, and 4 minutes of the first piece of the loop triggered live.
But if you get it wrong, run it back or just run
it. Well, I mean, that was just I don't know how many beats I made like that, but I was making beats, and then I saw Vitamin had a group, which means he made beats, and then I was playing him some of the stuff I made, and then it was him saying, "Oh, I make," and taking me to his house, and then seeing the equipment to how to make other stuff,
right?
And just started building back and forth. I mean, I was doing my thing, he was doing his thing. I had my little set of records, he had his little set of records, or more than me, because he came from a family that had a lot more. So it's me learning records kind of via him, and just becoming friends and sharing knowledge, borrowing records. I mean, he lent me a turntable and like a chunk of his records for like one of the first parties I DJ'd. I think I was a junior. I was DJing for seniors, or for I came to Garfield as a junior, and I think I was DJing a senior party near Mont Lake, and with my friend Merrick, who rest in peace, he gave me the one turntable, the JVC big thick one, which was dope because it was before then I was messing with like belt drive ones where they would jump. I mean, even his one with the thick platter would jump, but it was thicker, and it was more like a tech. That's what it was. It was like you really had to get to techs, and Derek had a technique. It wasn't a 1200, it was like a 1600 or something like that. That was almost like a tech. It was pretty much like a tech.
Right.
Start and stop on a dime. It was direct drive, big old heavy platter.
Belt drive was the wackest.
He had one tech, but that was just the dopest shit because nobody really had techs, and they were like at that point like about 800 each or 1,000 each as a high school junior. Like
somewhere at Franklin High School, there may be buried a belt drive turntable that I convinced them to buy me for my senior project.
See, you were more diplomatic than we were. We were thieves.
Diplomatic, but I'm sure I got gaffled because I'm pretty sure Mr. Haley took that thing home. Shout out to Mr. Haley.
Yeah, I mean, D had that, who he had gotten, or I think he had gotten one from his older cousin Bear, who's part of the Emerald City Street Boys.
Right, Emerald City Boys.
And but we needed more stuff. We used to kind of thieve. I think we stole the at least I know it was part of some thievery. We stole a mixing board from Garfield and rolled it back to Derek's house on some back streets in a shopping cart and some shit.
I'm not saying I know anything about those kind of capers, but my favorite part of what I don't know about those type of capers was when you had something hot on you and then you started getting stressed.
Yeah,
you'd be like, "Oh man, I gotta dump this somewhere and like walk away from it."
Exactly.
Man, I'm gonna start telling stories. Statute of limitations is gone. My favorite thing, and this is hella wrong, would be to dump whatever it was like behind a church.
Right. Oh yeah, see, there you go.
Because if I'm going to church to pick up back,
right,
I'm probably golden,
right?
But I don't know anything about any of that. I advise you definitely don't take those tactics.
No.
It's bad for your health.
No, but it was just a lot of it was. I mean, it's young, dumb, but it was just really hungry to do it. Like he had a sampler, he had like a Roland S10 that like the screen had broken, but it had a screen output. So I think we may have listed one of them old Commodore 64. It was green. the green kind of matrix screens, but it was just so we could keep it moving and keep seeing what we are doing, so we could continue to make beats.
Right. So in that era, at the same time, you had kids getting jacked for Jordans.
Oh yeah,
starter cats.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely colorful bus rides.
Right. But if you know, there's something you know, definitively different intent between, you know, rolling up on somebody, yo, what size you wear,
right,
and in doing something to create.
Yeah, no, we posseed up quickly as far as just a collective of people. Like we all want to do this. Like, or just, but D had his own set of friends. I mean, actually, he was also, who was there? Mike Patterson, poetry. He was a close friend of Derek already. So like when I met Derek, he was already friends with all the people I mentioned. Mike. I think that may have been it. I had met Infinite, and we were kind of doing artistic things because I know he knew I was into beats. And I think actually it was like, I remember I was messing with Infinite first because I think when I figured out the S10's action, it was like, oh man, I got beat. Now I can make us beats.
Right.
And then we met, and then I think he had some classes with Hussein, and I started kicking with Hussein, and he started putting me up on music, and we just kind of had the same sort of, I shouldn't say the same, but like we had an affinity for the same type of things, like, you know, wild drums and syncopation, and his whole style was very, very syncopated.
He had that back then?
Well, he was like putting me up on the stuff like Rumpelstiltskins and like Kool Keith. He was a huge Kool Keith fan and Ultra, and so he was
Ultra Man.
And they were really, I mean, at that point, I'm like, they were pretty kind of underground. Like, I mean, I had tape with BDP on it, even though Said G was a big part of like doing stuff for like BDP stuff, but I didn't necessarily know that bridge, so he kind of familiarized me to the bridge in between those two entities. And just a lot of he kind of hit me to a lot of stuff. I mean, just kind of weirder stuff, but then at that point it's like 91 and everything is hip hop,
right?
And we're all into everything that's dropping. Farside, DOS Effects, and Ice Cube, and Gorillas in the Mist, or whatever. Lynch Mob, and everything. Gangstar. I mean, that was the golden age. You go home to Rapid City and you're seeing everything.
Yeah.
And you want to be a part of everything. I mean, and, you know, I started from dancing first, you know. I mean, just being a hip-hop kid, man. Breakdancing when breaking came out, and, you know, breaking to rock, you know, and even that, like Rocket and
Herbie Hancock's,
you know, that first kind of real scratching and trying to emulate that, messing up records, scratching on top of records, you know, old parents' stereo systems, you know, not knowing anything, messing up records, not knowing anything about a slip band, not knowing, you know, but being so hungry that you're teaching yourself. I'm sitting here using a volume knob as a fader, figuring out, like, oh, I don't want to hear the pullback, so I put it's like I'm scratching like this, so I'm exposing the push and hiding the pull, and just doing all these things until you can afford to do it right. You know, like the first mixer I got was like a 5-channel, just sliding up and down, realistic line mixer.
Right.
But I'm turning it sideways and putting some tape on it to like make a fader, but you can only do it one side. I mean, I guess that's why I trained or whatever. You're one side dominant or whatever, because I had fashioned a mixer to only facilitate me scratching on the right or whatever.
Right.
Although I had other channels, but I mean, that was the days of really just training yourself. Or now you look back at this training, but it's just
like, a sponge.
You're just hungry. How am I going to be a part of this? How can I do this? And then when I started making tapes, or just started DJing heavily, I mean, I started so that's why I'm now kind of getting familiar with the order, because I had a few tapes before I started making KTOPs, But I know I made KTOPs because we were making a lot of music and we couldn't get play anywhere else. We couldn't get play. We couldn't get play on a Cube. We couldn't get play. I mean, Rap Attack was the same sort of a vein and helpful medium as like the Flavor. They were down. I mean, we were doing our thing. Once we started rolling,
right,
it was kind of undeniable. We were this big old clan that's fashioning ourselves after like a Tribe Called Quest as well as the Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, all the people that were bubbling at the time. I mean, we took on but it was a clan that it was like a number of people and we were all under the umbrella. So I guess it was kind of all this Wu mentality where we all want to see everybody make it. We all want to be everywhere. You know, all the shows that we're booking are a number of our groups. You know, to be a Ghetto Children in Tizzy-T on a bill, or we had enough to filter anybody anywhere really.
Right.
But we had plenty of shows where we would just do as a collective. It's just, you know.
What's always been so interesting to me though about the way that you guys started is that you know, like you say, coming up in this idea where like you know, Jungle Brothers and Tribe and De La, you can draw you know, you can connect the dots pretty smoothly between them. Wu-Tang, same way. You know, but you guys, I mean, on Untranslated, on the first song, you have something so different as like 93, 94, and I Want to Win.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like,
you know, that's a huge disparity of a kind of voice and content, and it's okay.
No, it was dope. I mean, we were young, smart kids. I mean, I can say that confidently. It's like, you know, like we fashioned ourselves. I mean, there's a lot going on with hip hop at the particular time, but even if you're fashioning yourself after someone like Tribe Called Quest, they're very articulate. The juxtaposition between jazz and, you know, the boom bap and whatnot. I mean, you know, they kind of made you. They made you learn about their records. You know, if you didn't know about them already. You know, if your parents, you know, if you didn't come up on them, you know, and you know, my parents weren't born here, and they came here in 68, 67 rather, and from Panama and Jamaica respectively, and they were Seventh-day Adventists, so it wasn't like we had all, like, I'm sitting here teaching myself basically about a whole era of music that was skipped, or at least a decade perhaps, like the 70s perhaps. We had like James Brown records, Black and I'm Proud, you know, but it was also with a Christian sort of a twist. So we're listening to Amy Grant, B.J. Thomas.
So Glenn McRae, no Sister Nancy.
Like... No, not like that. As far as no, our parents, we were in a full-fledged, you know, work mode and field and whatnot, and it was, I mean, they were Seventh-day Adventists, they were Christians, so a lot of it was gospel or, but even that, like I remember the first like hip hop sensibility. Like, I like that piece of a record, and I want to repeat that tiny little riff. That was like from Andre Crouch records. And Andre Crouch, I mean, he's like a funk artist that kind of went. Everybody was a funk artist back then. Even if you're doing gospel, it was rooted in funk. I mean, like Billy Preston. I mean, I think he was contemporary of like Billy Preston as well.
Right, you're gonna have some like, driving.
I mean, all that stuff. All that stuff. And there's, I remember specifically, like, you don't know what you're missing until you meet. You don't know what you're missing. You don't know what you're missing. You don't know what you're missing until you met the Lord. But it would have this. It would do that twice, and it kind of, one of them had a little coil back, and then it started again. And that little piece, I remember like rewinding that. I didn't have a sampler, but like my mind had sampled it. And I was like, I just kept on. I just would love. I think I probably burned a hole in that place without rewinding it. I just kept doing. That's before I knew about slip mats and nothing like that. But I remember that piece, and I remember the repetition of that piece, and just like, ooh, that's just. I remember that. And I think that's really the hip hop spirit, I guess. You know, the riff, the open riff that gets you going. The break.
It'd be interesting to try to define what's happening when that occurs. You know what I mean? Because it's like everybody knows it, and it's like it's such a natural thing. What what Herc and Bambaataa you know, and Grandmaster Flash created, because it's like any good record, it's going to have that little part.
Yeah, it's to the point where it strips it down, where it's the groove.
And like, and it's just underneath everything, it hits something in you, and there's like dopamine release or endorphins that come out, and it's like, why wouldn't I want to hear that? I want to hear that looped for 3 minutes.
Exactly. I don't want that to stop. That's the juicy part.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for him. Man, I don't know what cats would be doing without this particular art form.
Well,
and I don't want to think about it. So the world is better off for it.
Right, but you know, I was kind of bugging on this idea in the one that I recorded last night, about, you know, hip hop's inclusion in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. You know, I get it on both sides. I get it from their point of view, where they want to be seen as kind of the standard bearer, and it probably makes them look more accessible if they say, okay, well, Run DMC's going to get in.
Right.
You know, Flash and the Furious Five are going to get in. I get it.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, these are the same. It's the same institution that kind of made it as if there was even a question about, well, is this a valid art form?
Right.
Well, you know, they're not playing instruments, you know, or whatever. And when the reality is, what hip hop was able to distill was this idea of like, you're gonna find that groove that gets into your soul, and we're gonna run that shit.
Yeah.
And we're gonna run it. And
yep.
And how is that a bad thing? How is that an invalid thing that doesn't, you know, it's not worthy of recognition? I don't know. That I get it. You know, I get that that's where, you know, that things are want to go, but it would be nice to see, I don't know. I'm not sure that, no disrespect, no shade.
Right.
I am not sure that the temple of hip hop is,
right.
I don't know.
How that's working.
And maybe it is, and I don't know.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to probably comment one way or the other. But
yeah.
I know that, you know, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And execution, who knows?
Right. So those early Sensi records that were on Untranslated, were any of those done on your old, like, super old equipment, or was that done at the pharmacy?
I didn't record songs until I met D, because he had a 4-track. And I think I eventually got my own 4-track, but even that was like a spendy thing. I mean, right. but then we started pooling our resources so we could get things collectively, like ADATs and just supply what we needed to move forward as a unit. But we started, as far as Sensi Miller records, no, we did all of our recording. D produced our first record. I think it was a beat he had in the can already. I Get Busy on him.
Right.
And there were a couple different versions of it. I think I took a step. You know, I wanted to pick my production foot up forward after that one. I'm like, okay, he produced that one. I think I produced a remix. But his 4-track was what everything was recorded on, and so I hadn't recorded any songs. I mean, I didn't have any individual aspirations as a rapper or anything like that prior to that anyway. So
right.
I didn't really record until I had rappers.
Right.
You know, so was I Get Busy on him, and then we met. No, but I Get Busy on him was our first. Infinite had solo stuff though first, before we hooked up with Hussein, because he had man, with the quickness. No, what was it? With the quick Hyper React. That's what it was, and that was a jam. Hyper React was so
Infinite. We should just digress here.
Yeah.
Infinite has joints that if you know them, you would. If you had to say to someone, well, they're going to say, oh, you know, show me, you know, what's kind of the paragon of what's the top, the pinnacle of ability.
Oh no, Infinite is one of the most skilled with the pen, in just how and really a lot of even folks he was saying, and I could probably even see it as a truth. there's people who are really big fans of Infinite, like locally, like McCoyo, of Punctuation. McCoyo, Ali Barnes. He used to run Punctuation.
Okay.
Where Laced Up used to be.
Okay. Okay.
It turned to an artist studio. He's a maker. He's a pretty great artist and a good guy from the town. Friend of mine, my contemporary, and even to this day, he's like, there's nobody better than Infinite. Because a lot of, even back then, like, he preceded like Outkast and specifically like Dre 3000.
Right.
Before, like, a lot of people who were back then like really believe that like our material made it down to Atlanta and started to color other people's approaches. And I could see, I mean, there's no proving that, but his staccato flow,
right,
and the jumping in and out of that, and he really was before his time. And I mean, we had personal differences that made us, you know, go different paths or whatever, but I've never fretted on his artistry. He's really insanely dope, and I'm glad I was rolling with him, and I'm glad that he connected the dots and introduced me to Hussein and all that. But you know, I could definitely see, especially in the time period, because our first type of stuff started dropping before the first Outkast, and it's not like they weren't doing their thing before and were on their own ascent at the particular time, but it really wouldn't surprise me if, you know, if something like that happened.
And even if it didn't, you know, there's no bullshit in suggesting that there's a lot of similarity there.
Right.
And that, you know, that's, you know, you can say that for no gain and
Right.
be very honest about the fact
right.
that we're talking about Andre 3000 and Infinite.
I'm saying that's like this. Yeah, no, it's like that's the thing. We have other things that everybody ends up going hammer over globally or whatever. We have equal or beyond that talent here
In Seattle.
and have had it for
Been
very,
had
very,
it.
very long times. I mean, and could very well be the authors of a lot of types of stuff that only people with more of infrastructure to promote themselves,
Right.
business in that area, you know, actual industry happening in that area. We've always had unbridled talent, and you know, like I said, it's good to see us have a more of a legitimate eye coming our way, or, you know, with less of a smirk. It's like it's kind of on the line with like everybody, the whole planet's sitting here tripping off for something like a Macklemore.
Right.
Like, where this guy? And I mean, even still, like, even just like daily, I just kind of think like this guy who used to do shows at the Sit and Spin,
Right.
you know, while we were on the tail of our thing. I mean, like, I used to see Eat Cats Up too, like on some freestyle, you know. I used to see this guy give it to cats. It's really like the biggest thing on the planet, like from Prague to, like, it's crazy. Like, you think about, like, this guy was just from around here, and
Right.
the rest of the world can't get enough. And it's just cool. It's town pride is a cool thing, and I got to give it up to that, because it definitely makes you proud to be from the town. Not that you weren't before, but it's good looked when the town, you know, gets global shine. So
Right. For sure. What's your favorite Cincy record?
man, a joint called If They Only Knew that had all three of us on it. I think I'm singing them, both me and Infinite are like singing part of the hook.
Right.
There's a couple different versions, but I lost it on a bus. I lost one of the Crispus masters.
Yeah, because
There's
the only copy that's around of that is real.
Yeah, there's a couple there. I remember that tape loss, and it was just painful, because we really made painstaking efforts to get home with good take home mixes,
Right.
and recording level and high bias tape and all this stuff and maximum level, so we would have
Right.
really crispy copies of it. So if you lost a crispy copy before you really like duplicated it or something like that, it was a wrap. There's a lot of joints that, I mean, that were entertaining off the old demos and stuff. The Wilderness with Hussein sitting here rhyming.
The Wilderness.
Yeah. Ooh, you ever heard the Wilderness?
Nah, son.
Yeah, the Wilderness. Like, this guy's, he's like rhyming, pretty much like about the trees and stuff. He's like he's up in branches, and it was we had a demo that had like 4 songs. I think we had a couple different versions of a demo called 1101, and there was a few versions of the Wilderness. They had Arnold. We had a couple different sketches where Arnold made some more appearances.
Who did the Arnold voice?
Poetry.
Okay.
Come on, do it. Where he was rapping. Was like,
oh no.
Oh yeah, that's all.
Oh,
that.
No.
Oh yeah, I gotta play that for you then. Yeah, nah, he's rapping. Yeah, he got the
What are you doing?
Yeah, all that. Yeah, where he came to the studio and he's like, yo, he's like, knock. I think where he comes to the studio knocking like, man, who the hell's over here, man? Like, come on, man, I got boss. He's like, come on, let me rhyme. Like, all right, man, go ahead.
I gotta hear that.
And spits a verse. It was hilarious. Like we used to do the Arnold thing. We milked that for a minute.
Yeah.
Another song, Phoenix Gold, that was dope too.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
A lot of old. I mean,
Shout out to Phoenix Gold amplifiers.
A lot of samples before other cats used them. I think Pete Rock ended up using the same sample on the Peach instrumentals. So I think for Peach Jazz. Ding 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 ding. The same thing. We played different bass lines around it and made it do all types of other stuff, but it had all kind of crazy drums and echoing flutes.
I'm gonna be mad if you don't say To the Top, because you know that's my favorite
joint.
That's
good too. I mean, that's like more of a solo joint, but yeah, I like that joint too.
Man, look. So before this gets to be like a complete inside baseball conversation, a lot of the music that we're talking about you can find at triballegacy.bandcamp.com.
Very true.
And I think I can say with a certain amount of confidence that one of the outcomes of this show is to put out more of these older records, because why wouldn't we? If
Seattle Stories.
Yeah, Seattle Stories. Hashtag Seattle Stories. So the one joint that I am campaigning to top right now about is called To the Top. It's basically a solo joint. You can find it on the freestyle demo tape, which is available at triballegacy.bandcamp.com. I'm going to hit you in the head with that URL several times. And it's a beautifully honest record. And if you weren't here and I wasn't going to feel weird talking about it, like where you're not sitting right next to me, I would say one of the beautiful things about that record is it seems like it's just such an honest expression from a young man's point of view.
I mean, those are the days where you're doing a lot of rapping about rapping.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think I got caught in that for a little bit. But
the fish within my mental decided it's time to spawn.
Bloop, 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 and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like just a description of the process. I'm sitting down. I'm about to make a beat. This is why I'm making a beat. This is how making beats make me feel. This is the pleasure I derive. This is how I get down when I'm, this is what we do when we compare pre-production. This is, It was just a snapshot of us getting going. And I guess me in particular, my personal process. And I mean, that's, in the days where I was rhyming more. So it was rapping about rapping, and I think eventually I just kind of fell back and got to beats because I felt like I couldn't really vocalize it like that too tough.
Don't dismiss it with this whole I'm just rapping about rapping. I mean,
it was. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what the song's about. You're rapping about the process and your homies and how they fit into that process. But it was a very it's a solo record regardless, so it's going to be a personal joint. But yeah, I remember like cooking that up before, just like, hey, this is my top song. This is the top. So, and I wasn't. We all rapped, but even in Sesamila, I was the producer first.
Right.
So that was just nobody's around. Me rap.
Right.
So.
right. To me, there's just something so incredibly honest about it, and I liken it to Candid. Put out a video. This was probably years ago. But it's always stuck with me. And he was breaking down his process. This is like a video on YouTube. He was breaking down kind of his process for how he just constructed rhymes, and he did the whole thing where he would he had it on the pad, and he was talking about how he would reference I'm over here, but I'm referencing kind of my rhyme structure over here and my syllables, and it's and again, it's kind of the same thing. I wonder if this is just such a Seattle perspective to have to let people into your world that way, because traditionally, I'll link it. Yeah, I'll link you to it, because traditionally it's like, within the culture, there's kind of always this, it's like Jay-Z's like, oh, I hit this in one take.
Right.
This shit is so effortless to me, But I think the reality is behind closed doors, there's Jay at the table obsessing over the craft.
Right. I mean, even his mind. They show the film of him like it coming to him or whatever.
Yeah. And, so like, don't get it twisted.
There's a process of like you refining it in your head, and it getting better, and you keep on pruning it till it's his just happens to be in his head, and that isn't better or worse than anybody else, because there's plenty of other verses I would rather hear than a Jay no hands verse, and there's plenty more written verses I would rather hear than just everybody talking about how they don't use a pad and pen or whatever.
That might not always be the best thing.
Nah, there's something to be said for seeing it on a pad and physical.
Yeah.
But you're talking about Candid. There was something else I wanted to piggyback on Candid. Like the process, like because rhyme schemes are intricate. Like without being told the process. Like somebody's process who I think is ill is like a freeway. Like like when you're talking about Candid describing, like, and I went back to hear, like, freeway is like jazz. Like, it's really, really jazz. Freeway's whole delivery is jazz, to where it's a set of rhymes and then a whole bunch of something, and then a statement, and then a whole other set of rhymes set in like the styles will match. It won't necessarily even be the words, or it's hard to explain. Like it's patterns though, because then he'll sit here and will rhyme a word that he forgot he even said. I mean, that's when you say, like, man, why does he sound so? Why do you stretch that word out? Because 32 counts later, he's gonna sit here and rhyme that word. Right. And be like, whoa, I forgot he was even rhyming that stuff.
Well, how's the verse go on What We Do?
Exactly.
So the sun goes up and the sun goes down. It's a cold winter.
Yeah.
And bundle, you better bundle up.
Yeah, like, and then all the stuff, and then listen up. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Bundle up, listen, lock us down. It's like it's inflections.
Yes.
What did Hussein used to call it? That was dope. Emphasis. Because Hussein used to be. I mean, that's what his whole style was too.
Right.
Where syllables.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Where it's different emphasis on different syllables to make that's like poetic license, where you can say words in different ways or stretch out the pronunciation or twist the pronunciation just for poetic license. And cats that really do that in artistic ways got a lot of my respect.
And H-Bomb, you talk about somebody that's,
pattern oriented and I mean, that's what I would say. I'm going to interrupt you.
No, but you're right. And what I was just going to say is just that, again, almost he's creating that lane. I don't know that. I mean, I guess I'd have to really think about it, and I guess maybe, like you said, that could be maybe a little bit of Cool Keith, Ultra Mag,
all that stuff. I mean, and like, I mean, the more, I mean, back then when he was rhyming more, he definitely was creating a lane,
right?
Like, it just was his style just stood out. It was like, it was real technical, but it's real staccato though. It was like, it's just
staccato, but with a flow to it, like not Cool Keith where it's just like jarring.
Jarring. It was. I mean, we just clicked because we know, like, we appreciate the same type of musical variety. Like, I was saying, a lot of songs would just be a crazy ass drum pad, or just a drum top, and that's all he would want. Man, just some crazy ass drums, or even like when he did like Drastic Measures, he was like, "That's right." I don't even know what the hell made me like make Drastic Measures, or it just was pieces of drums. I mean, that was it. It was just like the crazier the better.
Sleep, man.
Sleep.
And
Yeah,
with a thunderous 808.
oh man, that's what having fun. I mean,
Thunder.
that's when we start, learning more and more about the machines, separate outs and having sounds isolated, or learning about chops and subtones, or just different techniques. A lot of times we would
Filtered bass lines.
Exactly, all the stuff. I mean, all the stuff that was popular for the production of the era, like Pete Rock, ski, all the type of. I mean, yeah, filtering. When we first found that out, and like subtones, the same thing as like where it's like a ghost tone where you can copy it and you can make a fake copy without using memory. Like you can copy a sound and then.
Because that's the game, is always you're limited by.
Yeah. I mean, when we first started, we were doing we had the Roland S10 was the sampler that D had. I mean, I had a Casio, but he actually had a Roland, which is a real keyboard. I mean,
right.
It's a real keyboard versus a small one. So S10, it had 4 banks of like 0.8 seconds or 0.7 seconds or something like that. It was either 0.4 or 0.7 seconds. Something really minimal.
Right.
Maybe like maybe it was like 1.4 seconds per bank or something like that. But it's not like you could make a whole loop. It was like you really had.
You're not doing like Black Moon loops.
Nah,
where you're just jacking a whole.
Nah, you're not doing all that. You're not just pasting 16 count loop over 16 count loop and filtering and stuff like that. But like you'd have, that's how much drums you got. And you gotta. Or you gotta do the magic loops, or it's right. So you have but even then, like when you start doing subtones, you like learn about like when you could come back on the snare, like that was it. Like that was a big thing. Like 'cause that's Pete Rock. He would the drops and then it comes back on a big old snare.
Right.
And when you find out how you could chop a drum kit up so where you could everything is sequenced. You have this kick and the snare and then the hi-hat and the snare, whatever. But when you could not have the kick there and come back on the snare, I was like, oh man, we could drop. I mean, without having everything split out on individual channels where all you gotta do is hit a mute button and you could drop it or something like that. But just a long road of learning different techniques and implementing them and from me and D getting better. I mean, D's always had production at the forefront. He's a very talented guy to this day, still in beats. But then Jake started coming around. But Jake was doing his own thing regardless. So Jake always had records. I mean, he came up with a musical family, so he's always kind of been a record nerd, and then it kind of got popular, and there could be a purpose for it. So he kind of excelled that way. But I know he always had a whole lot of respect for D and because D's been recording even before us. I mean, as far as like little solo songs, like the top, he has millions of those.
The Brown family, right?
Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, he comes from a very musical family, but even he has access to like record. Like he knows about song making for a very long time. So I remember even Jake mentioning like being very surprised that coming and hearing these fully fleshed out songs from D. Like it's got a bridge, it got this whole other thing, and he really had a way and an ear with records too, because he would be one of the really good people at even before just harmonizing breaks together, but just like the bridge, he would really be good at finding some bridge that would work so well. Right. And it was like just some other crazy record to go off, but it would come back to the main, and it really would work out really, really well. And I was even like jealous of it, like, man, how does he keep on doing it? Like he always needs to have this connection with this music like that, and it's just about learning, and that's just kind of made me want to dig more. Mess up college stuff, mess up college, scholarships for musical aspirations, and I remember being at UW on a scholarship, and man, spending a lot of time in second time around versus going back to class, or going to Gavin conventions and and putting scholarships in jeopardy. But I mean, I still graduated and got my took a little longer than it should have, but music's always been at sometimes a distraction, but a very, very heavy and major part of my motivation.
Right.
just dealing with it.
Right.
Just toiling with it in all of its forms.
Right. Well, man, I feel like we're almost at the 2 hour mark, so we're probably going to turn into a pumpkin soon.
Exactly.
I feel like we could have this conversation, and we probably will have to have it again, because I think there's like a lot of, I don't know, there's just like a lot of specific stuff that we probably want to get into. But
I think it's a good 90 minutes.
Yeah, we got a good place to end. So,
thanks for having me, man, and hopefully we're gonna facilitate some more episodes and get some more homies up in here. And keep the Seattle stories coming at you.
Yeah. I think it's very necessary to do, and not just. And I say that if someone else was doing this, I would say it's very necessary.
Right.
So that's not just me being like plugging my own shit.
No, I mean, and even me as an artist, I mean, we touched on it before. It's like we kind of were doing our thing pre-internet, and and sort of stopped. Collectively, I guess, as the I mean, we were by the time we're just doing a lot of different things, but the reach that we touched before that, like I remember people like responding to like Do the Math and Untranslated, even like New York. I mean, via vehicles of promotion like the Flavor, right? It was like distributed through Tower Records. So every time we dropped something, I mean, that was really a dope time to as far as the window that people got to see of the town, because they were really adamant about the town. I mean, like that's really was the first people who were supportive of the town. Like there's a lot of things popping, and they wanted to cover it all. I mean, that's what Cool Out Network was born out of.
Yeah.
I mean, at least the era. I'm not going to say like Cool Out came from the Flavor, but that was the type of journalism that was happening. Like,
for sure.
Just to the street, we're the ones showing you what's up, and so you got a cat in New York sitting here, will leave a message or something on my page or something like that. A point, which was like the number on the J card of the cassettes, or. I don't know if my pager number's on this one still, but it might be. Let's see, booking.
Yeah, booking.
Info
748
996. That's me. 8663. Booking and info. The 748. That might have been like Truth or something like that.
Yeah. Shout out to Truth.
But the 996 was me. So yeah, getting different correspondence from people, from all over the world, that were resonating with what we were doing was ill. Even pre, that's snail mail. That's before. It's not just like an email. That's like voicemail. We're in Sweden, and you're hearing this and this and that. Or it's like,
well, and that continues on. I get messages off the tribal legacy thing of people in Spain, and Portugal, and Belgium, quietly, the tribal legacy site stays serving up music.
For sure.
And it's going to continue to do so.
Indeed.
And
there's a bevy of it up there right now.
Yeah.
The Christmas tree, the Stay High Brother stuff, Table Manners.
Best Christmas rap album ever.
Yeah. It's there's a lot out there. With the freestyle demo up. We're going to get that out there. There's a lot more we have to share, so stay tuned to that. triballegacy.bandcamp.com.
At DJ Topspin.
At DJ Topspin on Twitter.
I'm sure that you're Barry Blendiana Jones on Facebook.
Yeah. I think it's just DJ Topspin, aka Blendiana Jones.
Yeah.
As I think you can get it. If you type in Blendiana on Facebook, I'm the only Blendiana out there. So
that's because it's a fly name.
It seems to be working though, man. That's the one. Like, and actually, the website BlendianaJones.com. That's on its way as well. You can check out mixes at mixcrate.com/DJ Topspin.
And subscribe to the mixtape joints too, because it's real easy to do that, and then you just get up on new music when it's out.
Yep. And there's quite a few tapes that are up there right now. All the Pillow Talk volumes are there. You can grab. There's like about either between 12 and 15 mixes up there right now. But like I said, the KTOPs, all of those are coming, and there's 23 of those.
And then if they want to catch you in real life,
you can
play it all over the place now.
Yeah, the best place to follow that, I guess, is the Twitter at DJ Topspin, but as well as the Facebook. But yeah, I try to stay as busy as possible. and I've done a pretty good job of that. I'm actually proud of myself this particular winter. There hasn't been the winter fall off. I've really been.
Yeah, you've been out there.
December's been kind of one of the busiest months.
Yeah, I mean, if you can catch cats like Top, Supreme, affiliated cats that have been through it and have craft about their business when you are out, I'll give it the old head endorsement. I don't go out for shit. But when I do go out, the first thing, like, and if the wife and I have a babysitter, the first thing is like, where's Top playing? And if it's up at Oscars or if it's somewhere down in the square or wherever, that's kind of the place to be, because when you start to appreciate the difference between a skilled curator of music and someone at a live event who's going to guide you through some shit and is going to take you on a journey, as opposed to just having the bar manager slap their iPod on the speakers, it's a tangible effect. And when you bring it all back to when you hear that part of the groove and it just triggers something inside of you, that's a good feeling.
I'm definitely about the journey,
and you can get that good feeling on an extended basis when you have someone that really knows what the fuck they're doing.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, and, so salute.
Yeah, I'm all about the journey, and even more so, like, transition heavy, for the Blendiana Jones and all that stuff comes through, the way that a particular joint works with another joint, and just the relationship. They even went to the beat mellow thing, like, in the continuation, like, I just like the relationship of music. And to mix something that came out today with something that came out 20 years ago and have it be twiddling with each other, both sides of it, is like, there's nothing like that. So you're going to see a lot of that live, or hear a lot of that live, rather. So check me out where you can, man, from the town to Tanzania. Hopefully get back to Africa soon as well.
Yeah, say that.
Was there, this is just about a year ago, right after New Year's. I did New Year's last year. New Year's 2012, 2013, well, entering 2013 in Tanzania. Didn't get a chance to get back there this year, but I'm working on a tour to go spend, hopefully, between like 2 weeks to a month, all over Africa, really. I've been there 3 times, but only have gone back to Dar es Salaam all 3 times, so I'm definitely ready to spread my wings and spread the influence to a couple of other parts of Africa.
Word up.
Right.
So we are at Do The Math Show on Twitter, because at Do The Math Podcast is one character too long. And I don't want to confuse people and have it be at Do The Math Podcast.
Yeah.
So we're at Do The Math Show on Twitter. We are Do The Math Show on Facebook. We're on some other places. It's going to be at Do The Math Show. I am... where it says on the sign, I'm Devin Morgan, spell it correctly, because that's the right way to spell it, and all my other people are suckers, except for Devon from Sport and Life, who is a super solid dude who happens to spell his name the other way. So anyways, I am Devin Morgan,
DJ Topspin,
and we are signing off for the Do The Math Podcast. Peace.
Five come to the tribal dum dum.